Okay. So it's like 7 a.m. It's too cold for porch chat. So porch chat is going to be kitchen table chat because I'm already shaken enough today. Neuromuscular disorder. And I don't want to make it worse. So I'm going to eat my yogurt while we talk. So one thing that I've been picking off of some of Sabrina's videos, she's talking an awful lot about precognition. And everybody's like, how am I supposed to understand her? I don't know what these big words mean. Slow your roll. Big words are just little words put together to sound big so that it scares you from understanding them. I just dropped my bottle cap. But big words are just little words put together so it scares you from understanding them. You can understand anything if you take it apart. So let's take precognition apart. Precognition. Pre simply meaning before. Cognition simply meaning intelligence or thinking. So if you're pre-thinking or you're pre-intelligent about something, that means you probably know about it. Thus, precognition. Now, why does precognition scare people? Because normally in the study of psychology and cognition is learned. But there are certain aspects of cognition that people think are not learned, that they're inherently intrinsic within us. And that freaks scientists out because scientists like to know everything before we know it. That really freaks scientists out. So the fact that we, as children, playing out in the woods would know to be scared of an animal we haven't ever seen, or a dog that we may not know, or have an inherent fear of water if it's so deep, or understand that we found an object we should not touch. Those are all things that people say, oh no, it must have been learned somewhere in your past. Yes, but here's where we get mixed up. Past. Past means a lot of things to a lot of people in a lot of religions and a lot of cultures. So let's just throw past out. Let's just talk about basically prior knowledge. Prior knowledge could basically also be called your sixth sense. So if you have a sixth sense about something, then you have this intrinsic knowledge that you did not learn. It's not causally related to anything else, that you just feel within. So that's why scientists are so scared of precognition. They can't explain it and they can't control it because it's something intrinsic within you that they can't understand. Freaks them out. Hey, I understand that. See, I'm using my cognition and my empathy to understand. Now let's talk about empathy. Now, cognition and empathy both. Now, it kind of maps through your whole brain as it grows, but it's not really completely 100% done until your prefrontal cortex, your frontal lobe, is completely grown. Then you have your entire neurosynaptic regions mapping, and you build your roadways to have these emotions and have these intellectual ideas and have these sympathetic responses and to understand society and spatial awareness and all that crap. So we need all of our brain, it starts back here, all up to here to form before we can really understand empathy. Now, there are two kinds of empathy. This is where people get screwed up on empathy. And this is where society is getting screwed up because of the screw up on empathy. So empathy can either be like if you know somebody's going through divorce, yet you've never been through a divorce, but you can understand what they may be feeling. That is called intellectual empathy. I believe it's intellectual empathy. So basically you can understand. You can kind of look at that and go, derp, I can understand what she must be feeling. And then there is emotional empathy, where if you have gone through divorce yourself, you emotionally understand that at a different level. And you have a very, real reaction to that emotionally yourself. So there's intellectual empathy and emotional empathy. Now, here's where society is getting screwed up on the empathies. We've completely dropped emotional empathy because we have basically pimped society out into these little square boxes for everybody to visit. And I mean, that's great. We can have intellectual empathy for somebody that we see is going through something, and we may know that we can understand what they're feeling. But we're having less and less emotional empathy with people because we're having less and less contact with people. So therefore, we're never really feeling what others feel. We only think we feel what they feel. Therefore, there is a chasm between us when it comes to sympathetic and empathetic responses, which is very scary, which also shortens your neurosynaptic regions that tell you, I need to feel for these people. So your brain will map in a different way. Now, what is the one thing that all psychopaths have in common? They have very low reservoirs, very low neurosynaptic mapping of emotions. What are we decreasing as we raise intellectual empathy, but we reduce emotional empathy? Did it make sense now? So while we have maybe people that can identify emotions and understand emotions intellectually, we have people that are lacking in feeling them. And therefore, our society is going to a more antisocial, sociopathic, psychopathic tendency. Perhaps that's why we're also seeing the greater swing in behaviors that are hostile and aggressive in society. Could be. I don't know. But then you also have to look at optogenetics, and you have to look at other things that they're using to manipulate the brain. Yes, it's not fake. Actually, I'll do a slideshow later when I get back from my appointment this morning, and I'll explain optogenetics to you and how they use it with light and energy to affect you. It's that simple. It's very simple. They just want to scare you with big words and make you think that you can't understand this. But actually, you can understand this, because not only are you the control group, but you're also the group that can control this. Many people forget that. So when I get back, I will do the optogenetics slideshow. It may take me a while, it's a long one. But right now, think about, do I have more intellectual empathy or emotional empathy? And is empathy a bad thing? Well, it can be. Because if you feel empathy for others, that's great. You can understand and feel what others are going through, and you can feel that and know that I don't want to cause that in anyone else, so I'm going to restrict my behaviors and learn to, profile right here when I'm in society so that I don't harm anyone else. That's wonderful. That's great. That's how empathy is supposed to be used. But then you have people that are super empathetic or empathic more so. And you have to look those two words up and understand how they change, how they're different. So if you're empathic, which means you're always reading other people's emotions, you're constantly affixed on other people's emotions, normally because you've had trauma in your past. So you read a room because you think you're going into the lion's den. Everywhere you go, you're going into the lion's den, and you need to read the room. Now, I did that a lot as a parole officer, and I almost kind of feel like I have PTSD from my parole officer days. But like I said before, everyone over 6 on the face of the earth has PTSD. Living in the society, girlfriend, you're going to have PTSD. So if you have spatial awareness about society, you got PTSD. So empathy. When you go in and you read a room, you stay attuned to everyone else's emotions and how they're feeling and what may hurt them and what may trigger them and how you can balance that out and cancel that out and fix that. And you basically become more attuned to other people's emotions than your own. So people that are naturally more of an empath that go in and read these rooms, normally because of trauma they've been through, they're so good at emotions for everyone else, but they've forgotten how to read their own emotions. So now we've got a level of society that is just intellectually emotional, that can only intellectually understand empathy. They don't emotionally understand it. We have a lower reservoir of emotional empaths, but the empaths we do have are focused on other people's emotions and not their own. So we've got this chasm in the middle of society where we're not looking at ourselves and how we feel and how we integrate and how our behaviors, I'm a hick, our behaviors may inhibit or be a protagonist to someone else. Now, look at those two extremes. And I said most of the time, society creates these extremes for control, and in the middle is where you're going to happily live. But we have fewer people in this middle region when it comes to emotional empathy and intellectual empathy and just empathy in general. But if you want to damage precognition, which is prior knowledge, what would you want to first mess up within the brain? How we read each other. Does it make sense now? Hope it does. That was our porch chat at the kitchen table. I got to eat my yogurt. Bye, guys.